Today, I'm going back down to see Jonathan. Welcome back to the channel, mate.
Morning.
So we're here to give Heidi's cylinder head a bit of a refurb.
They don't look bad. We got no cracks in the valve, no bits missing.
What are they something wrong here? It's like the tools welded.
Out comes the persuader. It's not proper. I don't like that.
I'm going to spin the valve, and in the 80s, that's how we'd have measured it.
I feel.
It was my turn to jump on this very aggressive tool to cut the rest of the valve seats. A method that's frowned upon by proper engineers like John.
Because when we put them back on, they're going to just stick on.
Yeah.
And stay in.
Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and today I'm going back down to see Jonathan. Jonathan was on the channel ages ago now when he showed us around his very famous 4-door Mark II Escort that featured in a film called The Fence. Well, Jonathan's been back in touch after seeing the grief I've been having with the cylinder head on Heidi, my hearing aid beige 4-door Mark II Escort, and he's actually offered to show me how to refurbish the cylinder head. We're going to change the valve stem seals on the cylinder head, which are absolutely perished, and Jonathan's got the tools and the expertise to show me how to relap the valves in and that sort of thing. So really looking forward to getting back down to see Jonathan, and I'm actually going to learn something today. And you guys that get annoyed with me doing utter bodges on my cars will hopefully be a bit happier watching me do a proper job on something for once. Also, whilst we're at Jonathan's, we're going to get an update on what he's been up to with his Mark II, because she's looking a bit sorry for herself at the moment because she's having a bit of surgery to delete some tin worm. All right, I've made it to John's place and I've been putting a very dashing set of overalls for what we're going to get up to today. I will show you John's Mark II and what he's been up to with that later on. But first, welcome back to the channel, mate.
Morning.
So we're here to give Heidi's cylinder head a bit of a refurb. And you've got the knowledge and the tools to do so.
Yeah, we're going to make it good again as it would have been in the 70s or 80s. It's some skills I picked up all that time back in an apprenticeship. This is what we would have done then. We wouldn't have done any performance mods. It would just be to get it back on the road, pretty much as good as it was when it was new.
Cool.
So 2 tools mainly.
Right.
This is a valve refacing machine, built in the 60s, 60s, 70s. It's bloody heavy, it's cast iron, it will last forever. It'll be going when that isn't. We put a valve in here, and it rotates a valve round, and we wipe it across a rotating grindstone there. And they move across and moving in and out, and you can see that working later. So that puts a nice concentric valve seat face on the valve. Over here we've got another tool that puts new seats into the cylinder head using rotary grindstones. We have some pilots that sit down in the valve guides once we've taken the valves out, cleaned everything up and inspected everything. And we have stones that are powered around and round, and they sit down into the valve seats and grind a nice new seat. It'll be a single angle valve seat, as they would have been all that time back, and then we'll hand lap them in, hand finish it off just to make it nice, just to make sure they're seating nicely. But that's how it would have been done in the 70s or 80s, and that's what we're going to do today.
Cool. So I suppose the first job is to strip the cylinder head, no?
Yep, yeah, we'll strip it. We'll measure a few bits. We're not going to go crazy because we haven't got any spares today, and hopefully nothing's going to stop us from putting it all back together. It's not been too bad. You have lost the valve stem seals, which is why it's carbony, but they don't look bad. We got no cracks in the valve, no bits missing, so I think this is going to go back together today.
Cool.
I think it's going to be okay.
All right, John, so first job is obviously to strip this cylinder head, and you've got your valve spring compressor tool over here.
That one fits this quite nicely.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, we're going to squish this spring down, take these 2 keepers out, take the retainer off the top. We'll put them onto here in its particular place, and we're going to keep the valves and retainers and everything with the actual valve, the spring and the retainers with the actual valve in sequence.
So you've got it all like numbered there, so we know that each valve's going to go back in where it came out of, basically. Yeah.
It does look like everything is standard, so we're going to not suffer any problems today. Sometimes if this was tuned, we'd have some spacers underneath to give the right seat pressures and poundage for the springs, but this is an absolutely standard head. I really don't see that any reason this isn't going to go back together.
Right, cool.
I use this on bikes quite a lot because they've got the quite small ones if I'm doing any bike cylinder heads, bike engine overhauls. Do a lot with motocross engines.
Yeah.
And they use tiny valves, tiny springs, not a lot of room in a bike cylinder head compared to a car. So what we're going to do, we're going to just put pressure on the spring, push it down, but leaving the valve where it is.
And these are called collets, right?
Yeah. They're tapered and they sit in a tapered seat so that when the spring pressure is on the tapered seat, it pushes them together. And these lock into the valve. This shape here locks into the end of the valve.
Cool.
So they can't come out because they're tapered.
All right. So now you're just releasing the
slowly
tension
unwind.
back off again.
This isn't a quick game. It shouldn't be done in a hurry. Just take your time. We're going to do a proper job. Nobody was in a rush back in the 70s and 80s in a garage. You weren't timed and on bonus schemes. Right, so that's going to be 8. We've started that end. And we've got one dirty sooty valve.
Cool.
They don't seem too bad. They're not too recessed in here. Where this has been pounding against a seat for 20, 30 years, sometimes they take on a little bit of a shape in here where they get a bit compacted. They're not bad. They're going to be all right. We're going to clean them all up later, get all the carbon off, measure the stem at the top and halfway down, see if there's much wear, but they don't look bad. Don't look bad at all.
Cool.
So we're going to keep them in order.
1 down, 7 to go. And that's the old valve stem seal.
That's the old valve stem seal.
That's probably one of the better ones.
They act like umbrellas. They don't really seal around here too well like modern stuff.
Right.
They just act like an umbrella and make it flow over the top and keep it away from the valve guide. But yeah, that's seen better days.
Yeah.
Won't put that back in. So this is the seat in the cylinder head that forms a seal against this part of the valve.
Yeah.
And they don't look in bad condition. Yeah, they're dirty. It's just carbon. But there's not any great big pits. It's not recessed in too badly. I wouldn't say this has done that much mileage, actually. Just hasn't been used for a long time.
Rumoured to have done 57,000, I think. And because I know the car, I know that it sat around for 20 or 30 years doing nothing, so...
It may have had this done in the past.
Oh, right.
They do look surprisingly good condition for a 60,000 mile old crossflow.
Okay.
They're not bad at all.
All right, time for me to jump on the valve compressor and see if I can get the other 7 valves and springs out of the cylinder head.
It's like it ain't. Am I doing something wrong here? It's like it's like the tool's bending.
Yeah, for some reason the spring wasn't compressing just because it's seized. So out comes the persuader and the trusty socket so that we can loosen them off first. And you don't like this because it's not proper.
I don't like that.
So that one actually just came out by doing that.
And just remove them all like that.
With the springs unseized by the persuader, I was able to carry on with the spring compressor to remove the collets.
1, 2.
And then once the spring compressor was released, I could remove the valve spring and retainer. Oh, and what was left of the valve stem seal.
Just push it through, that's it.
Then with the valve removed from the cylinder head, it was just a case of repeating the process for the other 6 valves.
Alright, so there we have it. One stripped cylinder head with all the valves and springs over here and the collets in this little pot. And yeah, so far everything looks good, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's Can't see a whole lot wrong with this, really.
Cool.
Been
So
really lucky.
So the next sort of process is to clean everything up, obviously, before we start reassembling it, right?
Yep. And we're going to get all this carbon off, and then we're going to have a look for any kind of anything that's bad with it. Clean all the faces up, see what we're dealing with. So we're going to turn it on. Then we're going to hold the valve, and we're going to spin the valve and clean the faces up. We can do whatever we like to this face, okay? Because we're going to put a new seat on there.
Right.
So don't worry about wiping it across the across the wire wheel. And it's going to come up nice.
Right, there's the before, and there's the after. Mint.
With all the valves cleaned, we turned our attention to the cylinder head using a wire brush on a drill to clean out the ports. Then we grabbed the trusty Dremel to clean out the spark plug threads. Then John grabbed a scraper and showed me how to carefully remove any remaining gasket material or carbon from the face of the cylinder head. Then, after a squirt of WD-40, I sanded the head face with some wet and dry wrapped round a piece of wood, using diagonal strokes and keeping it super flat. The head face was now looking awesome, and we repeated the process on the exhaust and inlet manifold faces. After a quick rinse with washing up liquid, we used compressed air to dry the cylinder head and to remove any debris from any of the thread holes.
Alright, so now the cylinder head's clean, it's time to start getting the valves ready to put back in the cylinder head, right?
That's it, yeah. We're going to check them over, see if there's anything wrong with them, see if there's any splits, any cracks, any bits missing. They were a very cheap material at the time. They're not performance orientated. There's a lot of material here. Not so good for flow, but it's not what we're looking for. They've lasted well. There doesn't appear to be any scorching, any scrape marks up the stems. We measured a few earlier and they are within tolerance. They've survived very well. We will be able to use them. And there's not that much wear between the valve and the guide either. We did this by comparison, measuring one against another, rather than measuring where we aren't in a machine shop and we wouldn't have been in the 80s. That's how we'd have measured it.
I feel.
And
you were saying that, is it exhausts are like looser than...
Yeah, exhausts will have a little bit more slack in them, a little bit more tolerance, because they'll heat up a little bit more. They get hotter than the inlets. But we've measured them all up and they are pretty good. So they're all going to go again. There's no cracks, nothing particularly wrong with the cylinder head. As I say, we're just going to look at it visually. We won't crack test it, we won't pressure test it. Just don't have the tool in here, and we wouldn't have done in the 80s. That is good to go. I'll show you how to use the machine.
Yeah.
So we're going to make sure, as we said, there's nothing wrong with it. They look fairly straight. We could have rolled them to test whether they're straight or not. Nothing particularly wrong there. So this machine, this puts a new face on the valve here. We're using a grinder and rotating the valve in a chuck.
And this is adjustable in terms of the angle, right?
Yeah, we could set different degrees on there. If we were looking to gain a little bit of flow, we might put a back cut of 30 degrees on the back of the valve, but we're not going to do that. So what we're going to do, we're going to get it somewhere close before we start it up. And then we're going to turn the machine on, and we're going to very, very slowly wipe the valve, the rotating valve, across this grinder face. And we're going to bring the grinder outwards very, very slowly, taking minimal material and really, really slowly. This is where you need a little bit of patience. You can't just attack this. We want a nice job, so we're just going to take our time.
So here's a look before. How far in's this got to go?
Oh, there, that'd be good.
Once the valve was locked into the chuck, I got to grips with the controls on the machine. This knob moved the valve left and right, and this knob moved the grinding stone forward and backwards. Then it was time to fire up the machine and get to work. I kept moving the valve from left to right whilst simultaneously bringing the grinding stone closer and closer to the valve until I'd removed a thin layer of material from the angled face of the valve.
A little bit more. Little bit more.
After a second pass, John was happy with the finish. And here you can see how the freshly cut valve compares to a valve that hasn't been done, and then not long after, all 8 valves were done.
So we're going to cut the valve seats, that's right?
That's correct, yep.
With a valve seat cutter, I presume.
This is another 1960s tool.
Yeah.
Good bit of kit, built to last. Does an ample job for what we're going to do. Consists of a pilot that goes down into the valve guide. It's a taper pilot, so you put it in and you tighten it up. Tighten it in.
And as you're twisting that, it's opening up.
It's on a taper, yeah. So that bites nicely in there and is aligned with the centre of the valve guide.
Yeah.
And then we're going to use a rotary stone that goes on here, and a tool, a high-speed grinding tool that turns this, which cuts new faces into the seats.
Cool.
It's very aggressive. We just want to do a little bit at a time. It's easy to really pound the seats in there. It's not what we're looking for. Would make your shiny boat anchor even worse. But we'll let you have a go on it.
So just enough and no more?
Just enough. Just enough. And we only just want to give it a tickle. And keep looking. Needs a little bit more.
John was literally only giving the machine a couple of revolutions every time before rechecking what the seat looked like, and after just a few passes he was happy with the finish.
We're going to very finely grind these into those anyway.
And then after a couple of anxious questions to clarify what I was supposed to be doing, it was my turn to jump on this very aggressive tool to cut the rest of the valve seats.
All right, so we're all good on the seats, yeah?
Yep.
Cool.
What we've actually got is a mismatch of angles. We've got 46 degrees and 45 degrees, so they actually meet at a point.
Right.
We don't have a big flat surface that's overly 3 mil wide, 4 mil wide. So what we now want to do is just grind down that 46, 45 so that it makes a nice contact patch on here. Too wide and it lowers the seat pressure, which allows, or could allow, exhaust gas to go past from combustion, and too thin doesn't allow heat to transfer from the valve to the cylinder head to the cooling system. So we want a nice mil and a half at least. For something older than this, a couple of mils better than thinner, and we can go a bit thicker than that, but not too thick. We're not looking for massive amounts of flow. We want some nice reliability and for it to last you for a long time and just to do a good job. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take some grinding paste. I'm just going to smear it on the nice new face. And what this is, we're going to put this into the valve guide. And we're going to take our time just rotating it round by hand. You can do it with a drill on the back, but we're going to do it by hand. We're going to do it old school. And it's going to take out any little tiny imperfections. So just plop that in there.
What's this tool called?
Valve grinding stick.
All right.
And we're just going to rotate it backwards and forwards. And when it changes tone,
Yeah, you can definitely hear the noise change.
we're going to just have a look. And you can start to see there's a small mark here where it's meeting that point. We want to go a bit more than that, so we'll do it 2 or 3 times.
So there's like a grey line. It's probably not going to focus properly on the camera. Yeah, it is just about. And that's the bit that's basically been polished. And
That's it. Yeah,
and you just want to make that line slightly wider than that. Yeah.
that's it. It'll be a finer finish than the stones have given it,
Yeah.
and it will seal a little bit nicer. So we just keep going until we got a nice grey line all the way around. This is a coarse compound, and we can go to a finer one in a little bit. But what we're going to do, we're just going to keep going, take our time. So you can put a drill on the back of the valve, but we're going to do it old school. Lifting it sort of pulls it back into where we're trying to grind it, because as you're grinding it, it's pushing it out. So we now see the difference. Should be a slightly darker line. And it will kind of tell us when it's getting close, when it's getting there.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's
line's
not
wider.
bad. At that stage, I'd probably change to the finer compound if I wanted to. We could leave it like this because it's done not a bad job because we've started off with new faces to start off with. But as soon as we're here, we're going to do a little bit finer compound just to finish it off because we got time.
So has that pot got them both in then?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, so like a double-ended pot.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And it's a much finer paste to start off with, just to finish it off. If you hadn't ground the two faces to start off with, this would have taken a longer time and it wouldn't have got such good, quick results.
Right.
But we started off with new components nearly. So if you can now see that,
Oh, yeah.
and that's absolutely bang in the middle, which is where it should be.
Right. Yeah, you can really see that line in the middle there.
That's it.
Easy as that.
That's really good. So I'll get you to do the rest, and then I'll put the head back together after we've cleaned the springs.
Cool.
I carried on lapping the rest of the valves in manually with the stick, but for those who are interested, this is how you do it with the drill. You attach the stem of the valve into the drill chuck and rotate the drill both ways whilst bouncing the valve in and out of its seat. A method that's frowned upon by proper engineers like John.
Alright, so the seats are now all ready, yes?
Yeah, Marcus done a really good job on that. Spent a lot of time on it, off camera as well.
Yep.
And we're going to rebuild it now.
Cool. And you've been busy cleaning up the valve springs and stuff?
Yeah, no cracks, no broken springs. Everything's as good as it could be, expected to be of this age.
So now comes the fun bit, putting it all back together.
So what we're going to do, we're going to put it all back together and assemble it. We're going to put these through, lube up the stems, put them through, put the spring and the cap on, and we're going to put these collets on. Now we've greased them, which is a handy little tip, because when we put them back on, they're going to just stick on.
Yep.
And stay in. A little bit of oil. And if it does smoke a little bit on start up, don't worry. So we're going to put the valve in. We're going to put the new stem seal on. They are a very old design. They don't really press on and grip on the valve. They just sit there and act like an umbrella. And we've already oiled the valve stem. And they just sit there like that.
Cool. Yeah, quite soft. Whereas the ones that came out were
And we're going to put
like plastic.
spring and the cap on. Then we've greased up the two collets and we're going to put them on. We're going to compress the spring, put these in, and the taper will push backwards. There's a taper in here that matches this taper here. And it will force them together onto the valve and keep the spring on. So we'll get you to compress the valve and we'll put the collets on.
Cool.
So this step is just a reversal of the first step we did on this rebuild. Once the spring was compressed, I was able to put the collets in place and then carefully unwind the spring compressor, making sure that the collets stayed in place. And then after a quick inspection by John, it was 1 down and 7 to go. This process actually took me ages to complete, but it was my first time and it was really satisfying seeing the cylinder head coming back together.
All right, well there it is, one complete cylinder head. How did I do?
Done really good. You've taken your time, you've gone through everything, cleaned everything, made sure everything's as good as it could be. I know we didn't have any spares, but we didn't need them, luckily. We've made it as good nearly as when it first came out of the factory. You took your time and you've done a good job.
Alright, cool. Thanks for showing me the process.
That's right. Yeah,
Very
it's been good fun.
interesting. Yeah, learning something new. And yeah, this is definitely going to make Heidi's engine run a bit better than it otherwise would have. Especially seeing as the stem seals were... yeah, well, there they are. Yeah, not good. But yeah, it's good to see that in general, apart from that, obviously, the cylinder head was in good shape. So we can maybe believe that Heidi's engine is semi-low mileage, which is what I've been told. But
I'd say the bottom end's going to be in as good a condition. I wouldn't crack into the bottom end, measuring bearings or clearances or anything. I'd say run it.
yeah,
I think it's going to be okay.
yeah, which is good because my current plans in terms of the bottom end are ignorance is bliss. We'll just send it and see. Yeah, sorry that it's cost you your whole day.
That's all right.
And yeah, massive thanks, man.
It's been good. I don't work on such old stuff as this very often, and it's what we would have done all that time back. Bring back some memories, but yeah, to be able to work on some old kit again with old techniques and make it as good as it can be, it was good fun.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it, man. I enjoyed it. Oh, in other news, John got bored while he was waiting for me to refit the valves and springs, and he's polished up Heidi's thermostat housing, which now looks a million times better than it ever did. Nice one.
Okay, welcome.
All right, well, I couldn't go without giving you guys an update on John's Mordor Mark II Escort. I will leave a link in the description to the video that we made on this quite a while ago now, when it was a bit more complete. In fact, this thing was complete about 5 weeks ago. John's really been tearing into this since he decided to deal with some rot. And yeah, he's been poking around everywhere so that he finds every bit of rot. As you can see, the front wings have been removed. He's got some brand new wings to go on. And yeah, I'm just going to show you around all the rust that John's found. Got a bit there. He was telling me that he put a patch in here last time. He sort of restored this car. Got rust in all the usual places. He has already fitted a new seal this side, and it will be having a pair of rear arches. He's already got those panels. There's some bits going on in the boot as well, but he's using that for storage at the moment. But yeah, you can see some patches in the front that he's already done. Anything that's black is basically what he's already welded. And yeah, it's actually mad how much he's done in a matter of 5 weeks in terms of stripping and welding bits in. But yeah, it is a shame to see it in this state, but yeah, it's good to see the old girl getting the TLC that she needs. Yeah, this side's still got the doors on. He was showing me some welding in here that he's done. You know, he's not trying to make anything hidden. It's just getting welded up where it needs it. You can see a patch there. But yeah, it's mad to see this thing like this. And last time I came here, I actually had a joyride in it. Well, Jonathan's insisted that I take it for a rip. And he's insisted that I use every rev. This is the Larry Z-Tech lump running on bike carbs. Makes over 200 horsepower, proper setup. And since I drove it, since we saw it last, he's fitted the vernier pulleys. Hopefully next time I come down here, it'll be back to its former glory. Apparently, it'll be on the road at the end of August for the meet in Southend. We'll hold you to that. Hello, into a new day, and I've just finished up editing this video, and it was awesome reliving the process of rebuilding Heidi's cylinder head. I want to send a massive thanks out to John for taking the time out to talk me through the process. We literally wasted a whole day of John's doing this job, and John was saying that back in the day, a job like this should take a whole day, but that would be from a vehicle coming in complete, you know, stripping the engine and then refurbishing the cylinder head, putting the engine back together, and then having the car drive out with the fresh cylinder head. So yeah, in terms of how long that job took, I'm definitely not up to scratch, but it was awesome learning the process. And I kind of think that doing that kind of thing for a living would be really interesting. Maybe I should have thought about that when I was a bit younger. I was actually planning to have a deeper look at what John has been up to with his Mark II, but, you know, as I say, I'd already wasted a whole day of his, and we were pushed for time. But hopefully next time we see John and his Mark II on the channel, he'll have it all back together, because, yeah, he is planning to have it all back together for a meet in Southend in August. So we'll see how he gets on, although he has already been sending me photos of the progress he's made on the welding since I went to visit him to rebuild Heidi's cylinder head. Now, I've got a very last minute announcement to make about what I'm going to be up to this weekend. It is something that I've already announced on my social media, but I've basically been invited to display Esther, my Mark 1 Escort, at an awesome car show in Wembley called Petrol Hedonism Underground, which is going to be attended by some massive YouTubers like Shmee150, Freddie Tavarish from America, Adam C, Motor Addicts. So yeah, loads of big names. So I'm honoured to be invited along myself, you know, with my channel being so small. And yeah, I can't wait to get Esther to that show to display her. I'm going to be at the show myself at least one of the 2 days. It's on this Saturday and Sunday, but I might be there both days, to be honest. So yeah, if you do see me there, feel free to come and say hello. I've always got time at these shows to talk to you guys. And yeah, I need to get up super early tomorrow to get Esther cleaned up so that I can take her to Wembley so that she's ready for the show the day after tomorrow and the day after that. In other news, I've finally dropped off Heidi's flywheel back to Carlo so that he can skim it for me. I've finally dropped off the next batch of zinc plating bits to the zinc platers, and I'm also going to be visiting the guys at Microblast Services very soon to get some bits done for Heidi. And yeah, I've already been doing a couple of little bits in the background, so yeah, hoping to make some more real progress on Heidi very soon. But for now, I'm going to end this video here. Massive thanks again to Jonathan for helping me out with Heidi's cylinder head. If the rest of you guys enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up and give it a share on your social media. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new to the channel. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. Check out my website for official merchandise and car parts. Massive thanks as always to my patrons for your ongoing support. I'll leave all the links to everything in the description along with my email address for anyone who wants to contact me. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.